along with the project, it will tell you exactly how many stitches you need to be using for your project. In this example, I will be using 7 loops. The yarn that's attached to my ball of yarn, I'm going to call my working loops. These I will call my project loops. In each of our project loops, we want to create a knit stitch and then a purl stitch. A knit, a purl, a knit, a purl, a knit. And in order to do that, we will have to move our working stitches from the front and to the back, depending if we're creating a knit stitch or a purl stitch. Let me show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In this 7th loop of my project, I will begin working the first loop from my working yarn. So this first loop, I want to be a knit. So I'm going to take the loop behind this 7th loop and tuck it into it and pull it up. The next loop on my project, I actually need that to be a purl. So I need this loop right here to be a purl stitch. So I need to move it to the front of that loop, and I will tuck the working loop through the project loop from front to back. The next loop on my project right here, I need that to be a knit. So I'm going to move my yarn between those 2 stitches, those 2 loops, so that way I can get to the next loop on my working yarn and pull it through the loop on my project yarn. The next loop on my project is going to be a purl, so I have to move these stitches to the front and then take that loop and move it from the front to the back of the project loop. The following is a knit, so I will make sure I take the next loop on my working yarn, go from back to front on the project loop. The next loop on my project, I want it to be a purl, so I need to have this one in front. So I'm bringing it to the front, go from front to back on the project loop. The next loop on my project, which is the last one, needs to be a knit. So I'm going to move it to the back, take the next loop on my working yarn, and put it through my project loop. As I set this down, it looks kind of messy, right? It's a little bit kind of crazy. You'll see that some stitches are forward, some stitches are back, and that is totally fine. What we want to do now is we will work back across our project loops, and this time we will put knits into the knit stitches and purls into the purl stitches. There's no need to remember what you finished with. All you need to do is take a look at the stitch. See how there's no bump right there? That lets us know that that's a knit stitch. So we take the next stitch in our working yarn and pull that through. Now, if we followed pattern, we know that the next stitch is a purl, but if we needed to read our stitches, see how there's that bump right there? That lets us know that that needs to be a purl stitch. So I'll make sure my yarn's in front and go through the project loop with the yarn in front. Go to the next stitch on my project right here. See there's no bar, no purl bump. So that next loop on my working yarn here needs to go through this one from back to front, just like so, to create a knit stitch. You continue this pattern working knit 1 and then purl 1 all the way down the row. And when you get to the end, you will notice you have a nice column of knits and a nice column of purls. I am to the end of my row here, and as I move my loops up, notice they're not falling, they're not going anywhere, which is great, but I'm already starting to get this nice column of knit stitches right here, these nice V's, and then in the gutter, there's these purl bumps. As I continue on, the significance between the knits and the purls will be much more pronounced. Let's take a look at what it looks like after I've done a couple more rows. I've worked up a couple more rows and you can see that the columns of knit stitches and the columns of purl stitches are much more pronounced. The cool thing about ribbing is it is reversible. As I turn this around, you can actually see that the opposite side looks just as good, and the actual knit columns are where the purl columns are on the opposite side. So we have a knit column right here, but if I were to rotate this over, see how those are the purls on this side? That's because the opposite side of a knit stitch is a purl and the opposite side of a purl stitch is a knit. So when you combine knits and purls in a row, you get ribbing. So now you know how to make a reversible 1x1 rib using Loop It by Red Heart.
Everything you need to know about knitting or crochet can be found right here on the Marley Bird YouTube channel. Learn with Marley Bird. Visit youtube.com/Marley Bird.